might contain some spoilers. Thank you. Hello everyone, this is Dragon Videos, ready to present another top 10 list, but I'm going to go outside my usual cartoon and anime for this one. So without further ado, here we go. So we all know about the definition of role models, right? They're people that we look up to and inspire our lives. Whether they be a brother or sister, believe or make believe, they are definitely something that just help us get through life in general. And of course, 1980s sitcoms were always the best to watch, especially when it came to certain characters that were memorable, as well as the situations they'd always find themselves in. It's just practically a breath of fresh air whenever we're dealing with life's hardships. So for this list, I'm going to focus on some of the weirdest role models you'd find in the sitcom industry. Basically what I mean is, you would have characters that behave in a way that for some people may not be socially correct, or just have weird and quirky traits in general that we might either be uncomfortable with or just find flat out annoying. But despite all that, I'm also putting them in here because of certain positive traits, something that we can all learn in the process as doing so, whether they're being compassionate or just looking out for the people they care about. So hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen, because we are about to go through the top 10 strangest role models in sitcoms. Bear in mind, these are my opinions alone, and there may be some spoilers. Now, when you first see this guy, you're probably gonna think he's a greaser, he's a tough guy, he is gonna be one heck of trouble. Actually, this is Fonzie. He is one of the members of the Happy Day crew. He was the rock and roll cool dude who'd always help out his friends, especially this guy. Though he has a tendency of being a bit of a ladies' man, and of course your stereotypical 1950s cool dude, he is definitely an awesome friend when it comes to someone like this guy. I am so sorry, I don't remember the names of Happy Days by heart. But anyway, one of the things I do remember about Fonzie that I felt like earned him this spot was when there was an episode in Happy Days where there was a party where the kids didn't want to go because there was a black person going to be there. So he practically stormed in and called everyone out for the prejudice, which definitely earned a lot of respect for him. And it definitely gives a sense of admiration, because how often would someone, especially during that time and age, would actually stand up for doing what's right? Not only that, but I put him at number 10 because even though he is something of an interesting role model, the problem is he's not as well known as the next contendants on this list. Sam Puckett, of course, comes off as the lazy, laid-back person who has a tendency of picking a fight with you if you so much as look at her. But to some credit, Sam's not without her pluses. I mean, true, she can be a little unbecoming at times, and her social etiquettes don't exactly click with us, but she is practically the best role model when it comes to friends. So, for example, in one episode of iCarly, I Will Date Freddie, Freddie was dating a girl named Valerie who turns out to be a witch when she tried to convince Freddie to try to work on her web show instead of iCarly. And then tried to convince Sam to ditch Carly in the process, thinking that Sam would turn on her friend and just book it out of there. Little did she know about Sam's loyalty, because in the next shift of the episode, Sam told Carly about this devious plan of Valerie, as well as being brutally honest about it. And that's probably a big reason why I put her on this list. She's very loyal to Carly up to the point where she'll be honest with her with almost everything possible. And another reason why her loyalty adds up was in the few times, more than once, Sam actually went to rescue Carly from dangerous situations. In one episode, I Rescue Carly, she practically went to go after her old friends to save Freddie, Gibby, and Carly from being pummeled into oblivion, and with one of her signature weapons that make us laugh as well as give us a sense of respect for her, the infamous, if not somewhat gross, butter sock. Yeah, that weapon was pretty handy, especially on her caliber, which definitely shows that she is very resourceful when it comes to fights. Even with that butter sock, you'd be toast. So anyway, Sam is not exactly an ideal person for social graces and maybe disrespectful at times, which is why I put her at number 9. But overall, one thing we can learn about Carly and Sam's friendship is that even if you have very horrible flaws, it doesn't mean you're gonna be a terrible friend. I mean, sure, life is gonna be highs and lows, but when you are a very good friend to the end, there's nothing that could stop you. Not even police could even stop Sam's friendship with Carly. But my advice, don't ever mess with Sam's friends. Unless if you want to wind up like that bully in one of the iCarly episodes, I wouldn't dream of it. Now, Alex Russo comes off as sort of like the Disney Channel version of iCarly's Sam Puckett. She comes off as lazy, laid back, and of course comes off as a bit shallow. You'd think at this point Alex may be one of the worst kids you'd ever want to see on the Disney Channel. But actually, when it comes to her friend Harper, she's probably someone you could really lean on. Alex would try her best to help Harper through some of the social situations, as well as save her from humiliation on more than one occasion, as well as being honest with Harper, and which is why I feel like she's a good role model when it comes to friendship. But not only that, another reason why I put her in terms of a little higher up on the list is because she also has a good relationship with her family. True, it's not exactly perfect like the Brady Bunch, but at the same time, you gotta admit that Alex would put all of her pride and her laziness aside to help out the family, whether it's doing lunch businesses or when it comes to some sort of wizard world situations. And I feel like this is something that we should see. Alex is true to herself, but at the same time, she is always loyal to her friends as well as to her family. Even if she's not very supportive at times, she still tries her best to lift a hand, and help anyone out if need be. She may not be the most iconic and lovable character, but you gotta have some sense of respect for her and what she stands for. For many of you who don't know, this lovable alien is part of a comedy series named after him, which is short for Alien Life Form. He is actually named Gordon Shumway, who tries his best to fit in a suburban area. Though, realistically speaking, he kinda sticks out like a sore thumb. He always has crazy and wild accents, and of course, his somewhat obnoxious personality can be a very harrying problem. And yeah, many people could say he's obnoxious, whether it's through appetite or trying to eat the cat. But he's not without his caring side. He really does care for the Tanner family, not to be confused with the ones from Full House. This Tanner family has a few problems. Though Alf sometimes has a tendency to drive him crazy, he definitely seems to know how to teach them life lessons, and very good ones about living your life. And the reason why for that is because he lost his home from a nuclear war. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate to him, whether it's through war that they've lost their home in, or through some circumstances that people can't mention. So, of course, Alf would reach out to the Tanner family because he's been alone in the galaxy for who knows how long. And while they're helping him overcome the homesickness he suffers from, Alf helps all the Tanner family members overcome certain flaws and become more confident as who they are, even if it means getting into trouble on more than one occurrences. I put him further down this list because even though he is an alien, he is very relatable in terms of what we have to deal with, and we never know what we have until it's gone. So in a lot of ways, if you want an alien that's actually friendly and someone you want to hang out with, Alf is really okay in my book. Tori Vega is your basically typical teenage girl. Oh, but one thing that kind of separates her from the rest is the singing talent she has. But don't get me wrong, it's not as if she gets royal treatment or anything. She still has to work for it. And it definitely shows that despite the high privilege she has, Tori is still a very down-to-earth character, still trying to work on her goals and dreams of what she wants out of life, even if she meets a lot of bizarre characters that kind of freak her out, let alone having to deal with the headaches of life, whether it be dealing with Jade or her very aggravating sister, Trina. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, even I find her irritating whenever she comes onto the screen. But anyway, Tori really is a good role model in terms of, despite all the weird stuff that happens, or some flops that she encounters, she still tries to stand tall and follow her dream, even if it means that she'll have to put a lot of effort in what she has to do best. Fran Fine is a very interesting character. Her actress, Fran Drescher, actually produced this, as well as star in this. So for many of you who may not be familiar with this show, it is called The Nanny. The Nanny focuses on a stylish woman from a bridal shop who got fired and then had to try to sell makeup. By a twist of fate, she finds herself being the nanny of a rich playwright man and tries to help raise the 3 kids, each with their own specific problem. With Grace, it's having an imaginary friend. With Brighton, he kind of has certain man issues. And of course, there's Maggie, who doesn't have a whole lot of confidence in herself. And one of the things that Fran may lack in certain social graces, she makes up for it in style, flair, and confidence. Something that helps inspire the kids to become better people and better versions of themselves, as well as help move forward from their loss of their mother. She even goes as far as to help Maxwell with his own problems, as well as trying to help him ground into reality. Though at this moment, I'm starting to think that maybe it's a little similar to Sound of Music, so I wonder if Fran Drescher was a big fan of that when she was producing this. Anyway, Fran is quite of a head-turner, even though people of high society may find her a bit head-turning and cringy. She's definitely someone we can't help but admire. She's a total stranger and a fashionista. You never think of her as someone who would help with kids, but oddly enough, she does a really good job with it. She seems to pay attention to each of a kid's problems and puts her own problems aside for a little bit to pay attention to what the kids need, as well as that of Maxwell. Slowly but surely, it also helps overcome some of her own problems in the process. Fashionable, determined, and filled with compassion, there's nothing Fran Drescher or Fran Fine, I meant to say Fran Fine, she would always try to put her act together and try her best to help the kids whenever possible. She's with style, she's with flair, but more importantly, she is there. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm bringing one of our favorite girls back. Raven is something special. Born with psychic power, she can definitely have the power to see into the future, which definitely brings off some, well, as I mentioned before a few times, unexpected and bizarre situations that she can handle. Even her visions can sometimes mess her up when she doesn't understand the meaning behind them. But they're not without their pluses. You see, with Raven's powers to see in the future, she can help out her friends and families with whatever dangerous situation that they come across. For example, Raven used her future vision to save Eddie from being pounded when his psychic powers were failing and was dealing with a gambler. So you could sort of say one of the reasons why I put her further down this list is because she has one amazing example of if you have this power or gift, you are defined by how you use it, not just by what it does. Raven has to keep it a secret because it would just resume her as a freak, but the way she uses that power definitely seems ideal in terms of a role model. We all have gifts and capabilities, so it's up to us to decide how we're going to use them and how it's going to help others in return, even if it means getting into the same sort of bizarre situations that Raven did. Bold, fashionable, kind-hearted, as well as paying attention to provisions whenever possible, Raven tries her best to be one of the best role models for young teens everywhere, and as well as being a good single mom in Raven's home. So, picking someone from a Full House cast was very, very difficult But I decided to pick on two in this list that I felt like more fitting, Uncle Jesse being one of them. I mean, true, in the beginning, it comes off as a bit of a rock and roll motorcycle punk who would always come and go to the birthdays and Christmases. But when Danny needed help after losing his older sister, Jesse tries to put his act together and lift his weight around, which definitely shows that even if he is kind of a wild child, he still cares for his family. And probably his saving grace is none other than the littlest of the trio sisters, Michelle. These two had an amazing relationship, and this brought out more of Jesse's characters. He cares for his nieces, as well as help them with whatever life problems they have. And with each social situations, like when DJ had to deal with a drinking issue, Uncle Jesse helped her out with it, as well as tried to show of how drinking was uncool. Not only that, but because of his relationship with Danny Tanner, as well as the relationship with his nieces, it helped him become a great husband as well as an awesome father to the twins Alex and Nikki. It wasn't easy for him trying to overcome some of his old habits, and he still has some of his obsession with his hair. But putting all that aside, Uncle Jesse is that kind-hearted human being that we can all learn from, is that even if he is someone with his own hobbies and flaws, he still has to be there for his family, even through the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay, yes, I did include this dork of a dad, but one thing I do have to say about Danny Tanner, despite his obsessive cleanliness, he really is a good father. He tries to pay attention to the problems that everyone has and tries to make sure everyone maintains control in the house in a way that is healthy. In a lot of ways, he does encourage communication in the household as well as try to do positive feelings. Even though he had struggles in the beginning of being a single father, he definitely came out alright. And the reason why I put him number 2 on this list is because if you think about it, how often do we see these sorts of fathers in modern day society? I'm not familiar with statistics and the concepts of child abuse, but it definitely would make sense. I mean, we're so technologically dependent that when was the last time there was a father who would actually pay attention to the child's needs as well as what happens in the social media? So, of course, years later, Danny Tanner still tries to be there for DJ when she had her own struggles in Fuller House. Danny Tanner is a remarkable fella of learning of how to do things right as a father. He may be crazy with obsession, but he still is a decent father. I know that Family Matters would have a top pick with its wonderful cast, but I felt like out of all the members of the crew, I felt like Stephen Q. Urkel would have been a great fit. That's right, Jaylee White's nerdy, clumsy character was actually the number 1 best, if not strange, role model in the sitcom. Now, whenever he is around, Steve at first was a temporary character, but over time became lovable, as for reason why he is very smooth and enthusiastic, which earns us a laugh or two, and is set up in a way where we don't want him off the screen, but actually like him to have around. But the reason why I put him number 1 is the fact that he acts like a voice of reason for everyone in the family. Starting with Carl, who probably needs a constant reminder or two through Stephen Q. Urkel, even if a police officer is driven batty by the crazy nerd. But it's not only that. There's also Laura, who learns of how to be a better girlfriend through him, as well as Eddie, who is at some point kind of gets a little trouble prone at times. And it's nice that Steve is a bit of a friend who tried to help get him a little gravitated. But not only that, but he really goes out of his way to help random strangers. He even tried to help a bully who was suffering a bone marrow issue, as well as going as far as helping an innocent man be free of a wrongful conviction. Overall, Stephen Q. Urkel, we can learn a lot of things from him as a role model, as well as follow some of his examples of being an honest man, an honest person, as well as just someone who is always there with a family, despite all the flaws that you have. Just try to be true to yourself. And that is why Stephen Q. Urkel is the number 1 best role model in sitcoms. So that's it, folks. I am done with this review. Feel free to comment and subscribe. Don't be afraid to also do a like with this video. Feel free to mention what other role models in sitcoms which you think are strange. This is Dragon Videos, signing off.